Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to take this axe, we're going to go out and chop down a tree, and we're going to be turning it into lumber, which is something I've really been looking forward to doing. So let's go slice ourselves down a tree and have a little bit of fun.
This is the story of me failing to complete a task I was wanting to do. Yeah, oops. But we're going to take you through this, and I'll be able to show you exactly how to do, but the actual completing of which did not occur. We need an axe. We're going to sharpen it. I have an entire video that I did earlier this week, actually going through cleaning up the axe and getting it all ready to work. This was actually worked out pretty well for me. In the end, after chopping down the tree completely, the axe head had moved about 1/8 inch. So I think I might put a wedge in it. But we're going to go ahead and chop this down. Now, this tree has two main shoots coming out. The previous owner had chopped down the larger shoot that was leaning towards the house. But both of these are pretty close to dead, so we're going to remove them. So I'm going to start by chopping in at an angle down and then coming in from the side and removing the piece. Or at least that is the intention, and a lot of times I'm completely missing the mark. I haven't done this a lot, and it is something that is definitely a skill to learn. Accuracy and the swinging of it are, well, yeah, as you can see from my form, I was never very good at baseball either. Oops. So we're going to chop in basically as far as I can. I'm going to come about 2 inches or so from getting to the other side. Normally I would chop in from the side that I want it to fall on. But in this case, because it's supported by the other tree, I have to chop most of the way through from this side and then cut in as far as I can. So I'm going to put the axe in as a stable rest so that I can put my crosscut saw on that. This will give me something that will allow me to start the cut. Otherwise, it is a pain to actually get the cut going without that. So with the one-man crosscut saw, I can come in and slice the rest of the way through. And I thought I could get all the way through because most of the weight is on the other side of the tree, but it was actually binding up a bit, and I got about all but 3/4 of an inch of the way through the tree, so the vast majority of it. And I accidentally put this in at an angle rather than flat across. You can see me kind of struggling with it. That was just one of those things you learn eventually. Put it straight through makes it much easier. But we cut most of the way through this, and then I had to break off the rest of it, so I got out the spud bar, and this allowed me to break off as much as I could, kind of getting between the two trunks. And once I got that, this one popped out. Now before cutting the other one down, I have to take this one apart into pieces. Yay! So I'm going to be splitting this up into bowl blanks and some of it into firewood and things of that nature. So we need to cut this down into the chunks that I want. And some of these I really wanted for bowl blanks, and so I cut them down to about a foot. You cut them as wide as long as the trunk is wide, and you'll get bowl blanks out of that. And yeah, sorry, the video, I had the completely wrong settings on this. Most of these I'm cutting down to around 18 inches to 2 feet for firewood, and I'll be splitting out large chunks of that as it dries later on. This crosscut saw actually makes really quick work of it when it is horizontal like this, keeping the saw vertical. This it munches through these in very, very little time. And once you get going, it was surprising how quick I could actually demolish the tree. The bucksaw it is most commonly used for cutting out chunks. In this case, it worked out pretty well. It is a rough working saw, crosscut, and for taking off the limbs from the main trunk, it allowed me to clean up a lot of this. So I get the piece down, and I could take the limbs off with the bucksaw, and then I could come in with a crosscut saw and remove most of the large chunks of the trunk itself. Bucksaw made this really, really quick work. So for the main chunk, I'm going to then chop in about halfway on this side of the tree because I want the tree to fall towards the road. So we can do the same thing again. Cutting in and then chopping out, cutting in and chopping out, getting rid of all the chunks. And I went about halfway through the tree on the other side. And then my wife got back from work, and we could start cutting the other side with the two-man saw. And this was a bit of fun working with her because she just got back from work, so she was still in her nursing clothes. Oops, I should have let her go inside and relax for a minute, but I was like, ooh, let's chop a tree down. And she's like, okay. That's the sign of having a really good wife. And it was a bit of a learning lesson working with this, but once the two of you get into a rhythm, it actually goes pretty well. and it cuts rather smoothly. And just like that, the tree falls. Eee, that was fun. Now there's 2 chunks of this that I want to turn into lumber, and so we're going to cut those out. And we're going to slice out, basically they're 2 chunks about 4 foot long that are straight and clean and can turn into decent lumber. So I'm going to use the crosscut saw to cut those out. Here is the first one that I have. And in this one, we cut off the main trunk, and I'm letting it rest here. I was very happy it ended up on the stump, and this holds it up so that there isn't any binding force in the saw. The board, the log will continue to sag down, and I can just cut all the way through without binding up and pinching the saw. So there is log number 1, and log number 2 you can see is on the other side over there. So let's actually go over to turning these into lumber. And for this, I want to make one line going through the middle, right through the heartwood. And then I'm going to line off of that 1.5 inches in both directions. So I want to cut this into 1.5 inch boards, and you'll see the lines I made. Once I have one side, I'm going to use a board standing up like you see here, so I can eyeball the 2 lines and make sure the 2 lines are coplanar with each other. You can see all the lines that I made on the end here. Once I have matching lines on either end of the board, then I can connect the dots with a straight edge. I would normally use a chalk line, but I couldn't for the life of me find a chalk line. I probably spent about 2 hours looking for a chalk line. So I ended up having to use a straight edge and just marking them with a blue color pencil. Actually worked really well on this bark. You can see a decent line I could cut down. And from that point on, it's follow the line with the saw. Sounds complicated, but it's really not. The only problem I had is most of the time you would lay it horizontal, you'd stand on top of it and saw it down. But being only 4 foot long, it just wasn't quite long enough. I didn't have a good rack to put it up on. So I found if I cinched it down to the stump, that would hold it in place so that I could bring my Roubo saw out and cut across it. I don't often wish I had a 4 foot version, but in this case I do wish I had a 4 foot version because I probably would use it. And so here you can see it's just like any other sawing. You just cut down the board, follow the line on the other side and cut it down, and then I would flip it around and rotate it, cut from the other side, follow the line, so I'm always working on my side. And this strapping procedure actually worked pretty well until somewhere right around here I felt something just pop in my back, and yeah, I was not happy. And so the sawing had to stop, but I had to get this video out. So yeah, hopefully soon I'll get a chance to go back out and turn this into lumber. But for right now, we've got a stump, and we have an empty yard, and a happy son, and a wife who I absolutely love.
So, as you can see, I hurt my back while doing that, and yeah, this video didn't end the way I wanted it to, but you can basically see what I was trying to do to get all the way down. I thought that if I just set it aside for a day or 2, I could come back, and my back has not been the same. So hopefully it'll be back here soon, and I'll be able to finish up this video at another time. But for right now, that's about all I've got. So you can kind of see how you can slice it all apart using a bunch of different hand tools. I tried to show different methods and different tools along the way. You don't need all of the tools. You can basically just do it with an axe, a saw, and then a frame saw to come in. Other tools just make some of the steps easier. So I hope you like this. I do want to do a video sometime in the future with a full pit saw at some point. I think that would be an absolute blast, but we'll see how that goes. As soon as my back heals up, we'll get back to this. So I do want to say a huge thank you to the patrons on Patreon. Thanks for making this craziness possible. If you'd like to find out more about that, there's Patreon down below. Also, say thank you to everyone scrolling over here on the side. You really are making Wood by Wright what it is today. Thank you for that. If you do have any other questions, ideas, concerns, or things you'd like to see me do and other ways I can ruin my back, please let me know. But I think that'll about do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. I think maybe first I should work on my form before I go back to back.